Superman and Big Barda make a home video. Mr. Miracle walks in at the worst possible time, and somewhere Jack Kirby spins fast enough to power Metropolis. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Daryl, and I am the host of Read Your Comics, and I have a very special guest today. Once again, joining me is Tommy Lombardozzi from the Jack Kirby podcast. How's it going, Tommy?
What's up, Daryl? Thanks for having me back again. I'm surprised you asked me back so soon, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, Tommy, we did a Usagi Yojimbo video in the past, so anybody that missed that should go check it out.
You've been on our podcast in the past. We did what did we do? We did Captain Victory, right?
Captain Victory.
So I'm a Jack Kirby fan, obviously, and I think that's why I'm here today. I do the Jack Kirby podcast and Instagram page with my buddy Mike. We've been doing the show since 2017. We've been doing the Instagram page even longer, and it's fun. Big Jack Kirby fans, and we're just trying to spread the word of the king.
Which is exactly why I wanted to have you on for these issues, because it's kind of Kirby adjacent.
Yep.
With the fourth world characters here. I've been doing these Superman videos, kind of gearing up for the Superman movie. You excited about that?
I don't know if I'm excited. I don't really know if I get excited at about these movies anymore, but I'm interested. I'm interested to see what they do with this. I don't really like a lot of the super comical stuff. So the James Gunn, that kind of leaves me a little skeptical, but I'm willing to give it a shot. I oddly enough, I really loved Peacemaker, and I didn't think I was going to, but I wound up really liking it. So I have, I wouldn't say high hopes, but being optimistic.
Yeah, for some of us comic readers, which I would put you in that category, it's like the movies. It's like we like the movies, right? But it's secondary,
Right.
The movies don't make or break my fandom,
right?
Exactly. I think it does for a lot of people, but I am looking forward to what James Gunn's going to do. I like Superman a lot as a character. I like him when he's bright, colorful, hopeful, all that fun stuff.
Right.
The John Byrne era, which is what we're going to be looking at, really kind of defined Superman for me. Growing up reading comics, I would only dip into Superman every now and then as a teenager, really. Yeah. But when I found this era of Superman, it's really kind of what solidified the character, the comic version of the character in my head. Of course, the Chris Reeves movie I grew up with and all that.
This series, when John Byrne took it over, it was like a rebirth, technically, right? For Superman. That was the whole point. And so we're around the same age, similar age-ish. And that was sort of what everybody built upon, that was the new mythology, was the John Byrne version of Superman. And that's kind of what everything from there on, like my formative comic book age, or in late 80s, early 90s, when I was a kid really deep into comics, that's when I started. That was this was where everything kind of took off from, not the golden age version,
Right. About the same time John Byrne was rebooting the New Gods, the Kirby stuff. And he had an affinity for Kirby in general. And I think it really shows. It obviously showed in his FF run that he did. And
right. He, in a lot of instances, he was in a lot of situations, he took the Kirby characters and really knew what to do with them for the most part. He treated them with care. He gave them the respect they deserved, but also was able to evolve them, which is cool and hard to do,
Yeah, I mean, the big concepts from the New Gods. So yeah, definitely a lot to unpack with them. Kind of,
but the difference,
he simplified them, but he made some stuff more cohesive, I guess, for the time, and to fit in more with the DC universe of the time.
Right. Because Kirby, when he did the Fourth World, it was called the Fourth World because it was separate from the rest of the DC universe.
Right. And even though Superman played a part in some of it.
Right, a minimal part. But, eventually, one of the, I think, mistakes of the way DC treated the Fourth World afterwards was that they kind of made Superman at the heart of the Fourth World in a way, later on, after Kirby's departure. He was the White Knight, the lost son of Apocalypse, he was their true savior, which was never intended,
Right.
And I know why they did it, because they wanted to sort of combine the universes, and they wanted to make them, streamline. and that's what they always do with comics, right? But it was never intended as such, and that's, again, this is an evolution of the character. Kirby never intended them to be really mixed with the rest of the DC universe, but there's a little Superman lore in Commandy when they come upon the Superman costume under the earth, so it's not that they didn't exist in his universe, obviously, because of
Right.
Jimmy Olsen and whatnot. That was this backdoor way into the DC universe. I don't think he ever really had an interest in saying, well, I want to see what these guys do with Batman. I mean, the Demon takes place in Gotham
Awesome.
City.
Right.
You never see Bruce Wayne, Batman, anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just like a weird, they're connected, but they're not,
Yeah, yeah. And you said you never read these before when I said, like,
No.
hey, you want to do these issues with me?
Nope. I thought I had the trades because I remember buying the Action Comics, the Superman, but it was the Man of Steel comic trades that I had.
Don't those collect kind of both the
right,
Superman series and the action series?
Exactly, right. But they didn't have the one that I have doesn't have these issues.
Gotcha. So when Byrne took it over, he obviously did the Man of Steel miniseries that was like the fresh start, the year one, right? And then he was in charge of the 3 Superman titles, although Marv Wolfman was writing one of them. And Action Comics actually was the team up book. So if you pay attention, like they're all like the first one was Superman and the Teen Titans, and these, it's Superman and Big Barda, Superman and Mr. Miracle, because every issue of Action Comics was Superman teaming up with another DC character of some sort. Most of them were just one-off stories. This is one of the few that was like a 2-parter, really.
I haven't read all of it. I know some of it. I read the initial series, the reboot, whatever, the rebirth, or whatever, however you want to describe it. That I'm familiar with. But these I've never read. So this was a treat. This was a good suggestion, Daryl.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into this first one. We'll discuss the cover for a second. Barda, taking center stage there. I love Barda as a character.
Oh, one of the best.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one of those fanboys that gets all like geeky over like comic book women, but Barda, she's one that I would do it for it, right?
She's hot. Big statuesque, like she's, like one of the big aspects of her personality of the character is that not only is she like this big, beautiful woman, but she's fucking tough, not somebody you want to fuck with. She's powerful. She's tough. She is the equal, she's a god, basically, but she also has that the goodness to her that she shouldn't have because she was brought up as a minion of Darkseid and so on and so forth. But that's like that's kind of the whole idea of Apocalypse and what's a New Genesis. It's like this dichotomy of characters, and who you think they should be isn't always who they turn out to be. That's one of the Kirby staples of all of these characters,
Right. So, and these issues actually do a good job of like describing who Barda and Mr. Miracle are with their backgrounds. But Barda, not raised on New Genesis, she wasn't really one of the new gods. She was part of, Darkseid's army. She was one of his elite fighting force, but she has some morality that broke through and she kind of left, right? But she still has that like warrior's edge to her, and it's different than Wonder Woman, where Wonder Woman's mission is like, to do good and be kind and peaceful. Barda's like, not that she's not kind, but she's quick to dish out some justice, I guess you'd say, when she sees it, right?
She's a soldier. Whereas even though like Diana Prince is a warrior, she's not necessarily a soldier, right? Like when you think of Wonder Woman, whereas Barda was brought up and trained to be an infantry person, whatever, however you would describe that thing. I should also mention, like, if people don't know, the inspiration behind Barda was Jack Kirby's wife, Roz, who was she wasn't big, like, size-wise, but a powerful personality, and always stuck besides Jack, always fought for Jack, was, his mouthpiece in a lot of ways. So that's that aspect of Barda comes from Roz, and she was also based physically on actress Elia Kazan. So if you look at black and white photos of her, you see like, oh, okay, I see it, the dark hair, the shape of a face and everything. Like you could see the resemblance.
Yeah.
She was like one of those kind of bombshell actresses.
I will say John Byrne doesn't make her quite as like
Buxom.
thick as Kirby did. Kirby made her. Yeah, she was definitely buxom by Kirby, but she also just like she was a little wider, like broader shouldered,
Right.
broader hips, and Byrne draws her a little bit more feminine, but still like big, tall, and statuesque, which we see here on the opening page.
Great page.
Yep. She's
She was
definitely wearing something that is a lot more modern, I feel like, in
Yeah.
contemporary to
Right.
today.
Oh yeah, that whole her. I mean, she's running around. She's got like little white sneakers. Like I like that. This outfit that she's wearing here doesn't look dated. Like it could be any decade and she would fit right in, but yet still look like Barda. Which is cool. Like it's not totally out of character because when you see her when she's not in her armor, she's just in like a red bikini or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So here, this fits. This looks like a modern day version of the red bikini.
Yeah. And open it up to this nice splash page of Suicide Slum. Now he does, put a good bit of like toneness to her muscle physique, but I mean, she's just wearing like yoga pants and a sports bra. That's like, I don't feel like this is 1987. I don't know that like women were really like wearing that out in public like they do today. That's why I say it feels very like modern, even by today's standards. Now, everybody else in this picture, not so much, but
right. Well, that also everybody in the rest of this splash page are very characterish. Caricaturish. So they're like this pimp or this prostitute, these like low lives, and they look like low lives. Like it's like any cliche like aspect that you could give art wise.
Yep,
you do. And we get Fancy Man the Pimp, which is a fantastic name. First of all, and look at the way he's like manhandling that woman.
Yeah.
Like, so this is 87. I know it's the 80s. Things were a little dark in the 80s, right? I mean, the title of the book is A Walk on the Dark Side, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So like the 80s are rough, right? You think of crack, you think of like everything that was going on, things got a little darker. And this is a book for kids.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
there's a lot of things going on here that is not very kid-like. First of all, he propositions Barda right away, like who's your pimp? He asks her, like we could be making a lot of money together. So like if you're a 10-year-old kid or 8-year whatever reading this book, do you know what's happening? It's weird.
Yeah. I read comics with my kids a lot still. And my oldest one he's about to turn 14, but like
so he probably knows.
I mean, he may have seen some stuff, but probably doesn't really understand, but like, yeah, and I haven't read these with him. I would, but I just haven't. But I mean, yeah, it's like I think I would have to like stop and explain some stuff.
Right.
But also, like, I don't know, a kid that doesn't know, sometimes they just roll with whatever because it's clear, like, oh, these are bad people.
Right. Of course.
So before we turn, we do want to give the shout out to Big Barda, created by Jack Kirby. So they gave him the credit right there on the first.
And page. They talk about the creative team here. So obviously John Byrne, Keith Williams. What's his name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Keith Williams. Inker. He's done so much stuff. We've had him on the podcast before. Nice guy.
Oh yeah,
from New York. Mike Carlin, we've had on the show before. He's an editor. He edited. He's worked on so much shit, and he's always associated with Superman. So he did a lot of Superman stuff.
Mike Carlin was still the editor even well into like the Death of Superman and stuff. So.
Yes, he was. Yeah, he
was
retired a couple of years ago. And we had him on after he retired. And then who else is John Costanza? His name is on everything.
Yeah,
going back to the 60s. So this is like these are I guess you could say like luminaries in the comic book field.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Byrne is credited with inking the figures, and Williams just doing the backgrounds and stuff.
Right.
So probably Byrne was writing and drawing this title and the adjectiveless Superman title at the same time. So and the inkers kind of changed on that book too. So it was probably just like whatever Byrne needed somebody to do, they had somebody on hand to like,
of course,
finish the book. But great opening shot here of Suicide Slum. which is like, the ghetto of Metropolis. And this picture says everything you need to know about it.
And I feel like we never talk about it too much on our show, and it's unfortunate, but like even just the coloring on that page, like if you look at that opening splash page,
Mm-hmm.
like she's bright and primary colors, and everything else is kind of dark and dismal and
Mm-hmm.
purples and grays and stuff. That's a great color choice, like this woman who is this big bright character is entering this darkness, which is cool.
And everybody on this page is like a fully developed like
Yeah.
character in the scene. They're not, it's like this guy, which comes into play again in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
This older man over here, you got like another, we're gonna assume a prostitute over here. I mean, even this one that he's like manhandling,
Yeah.
like squeezing her face, like her hair with the stars in it. I mean, like a lot of defining details that character, if you see him in the background, you're like, oh, she was on the first page.
Really well rendered. And that's something that Kirby did a lot. Like a lot of times when they would do a crowd page, like everybody had individual traits.
Right.
It wasn't just a matter of like, oh, let me just do a bunch of circles in the back and you'll know that they're people.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has a different suit, a different outfit, different facial expressions. Like, so, that's, I think, a mark of a good artist. Like, you're paying attention to those details, which is great.
Yep. And then even the street and stuff with all the signage and stuff in the back. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's
cool to read this comic and look at all the background signs. Like,
yeah,
there's a cool, there's a strip club called Peepers, things like that.
Triple X being like the big, that lets you know they're in the adult area of town, right? So yeah, like you said, Barda's going through and she is like, this place is disgusting. This is worse than the worst parts of Apocalypse, is what's going through her mind as she's walking through here. And like you said, what was his name? Fancy Man the pimp. Yeah, propositions her right away, grabs her arm, and she just slings him to the side.
Right. You don't fuck with Barda, right?
But the look on her face, even right there, she's like looking around. Like, what brought her to this side of town?
That's a good, that they never get into that, which is, I think, is interesting,
Yeah. So, and then the guy that I pointed out before, I think it's the guy. Actually, you know what? Yeah. He might be more in the background.
The blonde guy?
Yeah. Is it that guy or is it this? Yeah, it was that guy.
It was the blonde guy, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he notices her in that shot. You can see him like, oh, what's that?
And he
giant tits. I mean, of course you're gonna notice her,
Yeah. And he grabs her purse, which Barda being so big, that's a risk on this dude's part. Like, take from this like gigantic woman, that she's obviously muscular and fit. Like he's like, yeah, I can outrun her.
I guess if you're a degenerate like junkie, you're not really thinking straight, I could get away with this.
So he basically steals her purse, and which is going to have some New God stuff in it, right? And she sprints after him. I like Fancy Man too. Is like, who was that? He's like, I don't know, but that guy's in for a world of hurt when she catches up to him.
He knows she's a powerful woman.
Look at his glasses.
It's great. It's so good. I mean, the characters, they look so great. I mean, John Byrne is. I also thought, like, reading throughout this book, I'm like, this sort of is very McFarlane-esque. Like a lot of the monsters and the faces and stuff. Like I know like McFarlane was just kind of starting around this time.
Yeah, 87. He would have been.
I just noticed, like, style wise, like it's very similar to McFarlane art.
Yeah, there's a little bit more cartooniness, than like that McFarlane does, that was probably seeping into it. But yeah, McFarlane would have been doing Hulk and maybe that Invasion series for DC
in 87.
About this time.
G.I. Joe 1 issue, things like that.
Yeah. So Barda takes off after the guy. She chases him. Well, he thinks he's getting away through this like gate that comes down. She just rips it off.
And we should note it. Like, we should say that the reason why she's so concerned that he took her purse is that because her mega rod is in there.
Yeah,
and that's like her weapon. Her otherworldly weaponry.
Which is this. We're gonna see it over here when we meet the the main villain of the storyline, because she chases him. He thinks he's going to get away into the sewer, and he gets sucked up by this tentacle, grabs him,
Right.
and then we don't see him again. We just see his legs go up, and this guy does look very McFarlane-y. And McFarlane would have given him sharp teeth though. But he does look pretty McFarlane-y, and it's the noodle work and stuff on it, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And he finds the bag, and he recognizes what that is immediately.
Right.
A mega rod.
So now that leads you to believe that there's some knowledge here of her, or at least her weaponry, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he notices it from Apocalypse as soon as he sees it.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be noted, this is a new character that John Byrne came up with. This isn't a Kirby character carried over from something before. So
true. Good point.
So Barda continues to follow through the sewer, and we find out those like armbands she has on are able to basically put her armor on.
Yeah, which is a cool, a cool thing to see, like, because you don't get a lot of that in the Kirby books. Like, you know, there isn't those anything that happens in the Kirby comics and in the Fourth World comics. Generally, it's like, well, Mother Box did it, so I guess that would be her Mother Box. You know, like those bands.
Or connected to it somehow or another.
Right, exactly. Like, because every Mother Box can do something.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's hers, you know, that it's able to form her armor.
Yeah, the Mother Boxes often with Kirby were just kind of the MacGuffin for whatever the situation called for, really.
Right.
It puts on her armor, and Barda has some of the coolest armor Kirby designed, really. I mean, she's got kind of like, you know, aspects of Galactus, her little like things coming off of her head there.
So cool.
Her helmet always confuses me. Like, is it just metal, or does it kind of make her hair? You know, it's like,
right. I always assumed it was sort of like, you ever see those generals that have like the mohawk on the helmet, like it's like horsehair or whatever. Like maybe that, or maybe her hair becomes
hardened.
Super, right? It doesn't matter. It just looks so cool, you know. And that, you know, like the Mr. Miracle and Barda are like two of the only characters that haven't really changed much costume wise in all of this time, in the 50 something years. You know, like you don't need to fuck with them too much. You know, like they look so good. It's like, well, that's fine. Like, we don't need to really redesign this too much.
And they're like simple, but like complex enough. You know, to where they don't look generically simple.
I was always confused as to, like, there's on her helmet, it looks like a V, like the symbol on her the emblem
right there.
And I never knew what it was. Is it supposed to be a V? Is it just a design element? Like, it never really, you know, I don't know, you know, because V doesn't really correspond with anything that I know of. So it was an interesting little detail.
Yeah, and then I always like how she has like kind of chainmail,
sort
of, or like scaled armor.
Yep, very cool.
So so she's gonna put her armor on and go after this person who's already using her mega rod against her, and she recognizes that immediately. Like, well, she thinks it's that thug that's figured out how to fire it at first, and she's even like, "Oh, he's getting better with it with each use." And then she realizes that, oh no, that guy's dead, so somebody else has it.
Right, she comes upon his corpse hanging. So whoever that tentacled creature was killed the purse snatcher.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a pretty gruesome corpse right there too.
Right.
a lot of noodle work on it as well. And this character does call her by name, Big Barda. So I don't know if the Mega Rod told him who she is, or he did have some like general knowledge of her, or what.
I didn't realize that he said her name in that panel, but we do know that he knows who she is because he mentions it later on.
Yeah, well, he gives his background, and he did say that he knew who she was, because, well, we'll get to his
we'll get to it. I don't really remember, but I thought he knew. I thought there was some mention that, like, he knew who she, because I think he says something like, you were part of her elite guard, Darkseid's elite guard. So he knew that anyway.
So it startles her enough that he's able to blast her with her own weapon to knock her out.
Mm.
And this is a great page
Great
here
battle,
of her
right.
being laying in the sewage water.
Yeah, really cool.
And we see him with the Megarod in his in his jacket of his trench coat there. He's very Toad looking.
Yep. And again, I think very McFarlane looking. Like he could have been a villain in the early Spawn comics,
Yeah. Look, he's got like stubby fingers.
Yeah, like Violator,
Yeah.
Did we already learn his name?
Unless he said it right here, they've not said. Well, it says it on the cover.
Oh, it
It
does.
says his name is Sleaze. Yeah, the creature called Sleaze must die. So, very, very on the nose for what's this character is about, right?
And for what's coming,
Yeah. So we're 10 pages in. We haven't seen Superman yet, but we got a pretty good sequence with Big Barda, so can't really complain there, right?
Great opening.
Yeah. Cut to Clark Kent, who's visiting like a clinic in Suicide Slum, and he's also having some thoughts on Suicide Slum too, that it's something that he as Superman feels like he's failed to address.
Mm-hmm.
And
I like that. I like that he said, he in his thoughts, Clark Kent is thinking about Suicide Slum and these people who live there, and these old, destitute, derelict people. And I like that he says something like, there's some things that even Superman can't fix. And that's like the idea that Superman, as powerful as he is, can't really fix a socioeconomic problem.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's cool, because it's true. Like you could be as strong as anybody can be. It doesn't mean that you could solve problems like that. So and for him to feel bad about that, it's also a cool quality of his character,
And in the context of when this came out, it's 1987. The war on drugs has been going on for a while.
Reaganomics, people are, like there's a big, a big gap between, the rich and poor. This was like the destruction of the middle class, basically started here. So maybe this plays into, maybe that was John Byrne's point, trying to kind of address that, because it comes up later as well, like when he starts getting into the numbers, like the percentage of like that's, you don't just make that up. Like he must have been reading something about that, and he makes a point to say, like, it might sound like a small amount because there's 10 million people in Metropolis, which that's a pretty big fucking city, and this very tiny amount in comparison live like this. So people don't just think like, oh, it's just a small amount of people, but whatever, that percent of 10 million is a lot of people,
Yeah.
So it's a great little like social commentary there.
So he's visiting this clinic and he's meeting this lady, and they all have like, they're riddled with disease. I think that's even what the doctor says. And he meets this one lady, and as bad a shape as she's in, she's over 120 years old. And but she's not the only one. She's the most extreme one, but there's also like a guy in his 90s and another one in his late 80s but they're in such bad shape that they should be dead. Yet they're for some reason alive. And Superman uses Clark uses his supervision and sees like radiation, some strange radiation in her cells.
Yeah.
And that tips him off to, there's something else going on here.
All right. And then, he says, well, I can't do anything about it as Clark, but let me follow those traces back as Superman. So he goes,
And one thing I've enjoyed as I do these Superman videos is seeing how the writer is able to come up with some way for Clark to get away, to be able to turn into Superman while nobody's around. And in this case, it's the doctor's just like, you can see yourself out. I need to get back to the patient. And he's like, no problem. Good. I wanted to go in and change into Superman anyway. And you get a nice little, sequence of him in one panel, turning into Superman and flying away.
Right. It's cool.
And this is what you're talking about, where like he's kind of just going over the city and thinking about Suicide Slum, and he gets into the numbers, like you said, and doesn't, even though it sounds like a big number at first, but then when you say it's just a small part of like a much bigger city, it diminishes it. And yeah, it's good commentary all around. And I think especially when like I said, when you put it in the context of when this came out, it makes a lot more sense too.
And then we cut to, oh my God, Salacious.
Yeah. What is he done or doing to Barda here? He's got her like whatever this is she's wearing, dancing for her or for him.
Dance, my pretty. So so Sleaze, when we last saw him, he had knocked Barda out, and she was, his whatever, like his captive. And here we have him sitting back while she dances seductively for him, wearing actually, she's wearing more clothes now than she was earlier. So now she's got like her feet exposed. So maybe he's like a foot freak or something. But Sleaze is a foot pervert. But she's got makeup on. You could see like they colored
the
in
eyeliner and the blush.
Right.
Yeah.
She looks a little like harlotty, and you don't like us as a reader, when you're reading this, like, how the fuck, why, and then we come to learn that he is able to mind control her.
Yeah, somehow, like, I guess he doesn't seem to have the power to mind control like just instantly, but if somebody's unconscious, he can get a hold of them.
Yeah, if they're weakened, I guess, if they can't fight back, he could kind of take them over. And we also learn that has empathic powers. So I guess that's a way to sort of manipulate how somebody feels, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's not just a matter of like, I feel what they're feeling. I could also adjust, I don't know how it would work, in the context of a superhero comic. But if you use your imagination, you could say, okay, I see how he's able to do it,
Great background here too with the sewer. Very detailed. I mean, it looks dirty, gross. I mean,
the mouth, his big laughing mouth, like it looks great. The artwork is great. I mean, John Byrne, it's no slouch,
Yeah. So, and then this is where we're going to get the recap, or we're going to get the details of who Sleaze is, where he's from. And in this same recap, it's kind of explaining the fourth world to us.
Yes.
So if you're a new reader, it's catching you up.
Right. If you don't know these characters and this is the first time you're seeing them, because they weren't, it wasn't too often that you'd see them. This was prior to Justice League Unlimited, where you would get Barda and Mr. Miracle and the regular.
Right.
So if this is your introduction to these characters, this is your little recap, which is cool.
And even like in the early 80s with like the superpowers and stuff, they used Darkseid and like Apocalypse a lot, but they didn't really use the new gods like Barda, Mr. Miracle, and then they didn't really appear in that very often.
They knew that Darkseid was something that they could milk, and they to this day, you know, like he's the big bad of the DC universe forever, and he always will be,
Yeah, I mean,
so they knew that for a long time.
It's kind of funny. It's like Darkseid gets a lot of comparisons to Thanos.
Yeah,
but really, Darkseid's more like DC's Doctor Doom in a lot of ways.
Right,
use it for everything,
Right, but do you know how there's a story, and I forget who it was, that Thanos is supposed to be just like a direct ripoff of Darkseid. I forget who told this story, but it was one of the creators in the 70s. Maybe it was Jim Starlin, I don't know. And they were like, just steal these characters because these are really good. And something like when he did Thanos, he was like, well, at least you stole the good one. Something along those lines. I don't remember it now, but it's better. It's much better than I'm explaining it anyway.
So like Star Fox was supposed to be Orion, I guess.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, right. Good point. I don't know.
Okay, so they catch you up on Apocalypse, and here's Sleaze's story. He apparently knew Darkseid growing up and rising to power and everything, and was even his right hand man until Darkseid kind of tired of his sleazy ways, I guess.
Right. So that's funny because like they never really explain like he just explains Sleaze explains that like Darkseid got tired of my amusements because I guess because you see in the panel here he's like he's like dragging somebody around like so obviously he was doing freaky things or maybe sexual or just deviant or just terrible things to people, and Darkseid was his ambitions were bigger than just to abuse people.
Yeah.
So he was like, all right, I'm tired of you. Like you all you are is a creep. So he gets rid of him. But Sleaze never really did anything to deserve the banishment that he got.
At least that we know of. But
right. Like
one panel does say a lot, just the picture, because you've got Darkseid coming in, like slamming open the door.
Yeah.
And like you said, Sleaze is over somebody. He's just seeing arm.
Right. He was probably mid-rape or something or doing something creepy.
Yeah. So, but it's something that was so heinous that even Darkseid was like, this is enough.
Right.
Like you said, my goals are much bigger than this stuff.
Right.
So be gone. Like now you're just going to be in the way.
And he hits him with his Omega rays and banishes him to Earth, basically.
Yep. Where it looks like he arrives on Earth, like, I don't know, I guess in the 1800s or something.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Because those drawings look like, I mean, his clothes they look sort of modern. Like, it looks like he's wearing a trench coat and shit. Right. So I don't know what the time frame is supposed to be. I don't know how old Darkseid is supposed to be, all that kind of shit. But you have to assume that he's been there. He's been on Earth long enough to establish some kind of home in the sewers, establish some kind of connection to a suicide slum and the people that live there, as we'll learn later on. It's not that he just arrived there. He's been there a while.
Right.
He's built traps, so he must be there, have been there on Earth, or at least in this part of Earth for a while.
So once we get caught up with who Sleaze is at this point, now we got his background. We cut back, and it looks like he's about to do something to Barda again. She's even saying, "No, please, not again,
not again." So that he creeped on her.
Yeah,
terrible.
And fortunately, I guess Superman has followed the radiation or whatever that he was looking into, and it's led him here, and he's able to, throw Sleaze back. She recognizes him immediately, but he doesn't know who she is.
Right. Yeah, so Superman follows the radiation, and the radiation is coming from Sleaze, right? That's why he leads him here, and he thwarts this rape or whatever was going to happen. And like, it's weird to see Barda in that position, like where this guy is like helpless and being preyed upon that way. It's pretty disturbing, I mean, I'm making jokes, but this is pretty, like I said earlier in the episode, like, this is pretty fucked up stuff for a kid's comic,
Yeah.
And it's not, and he did it already. So we're to believe that she's been violated by this guy,
Yes. Now I was looking into it to see if John Byrne's ever been asked about these two issues before.
Okay.
And he's been kind of like cagey, like as far as like what did or didn't happen.
Right.
And he's just kind of like, if you think XYZ happens, then it did happen. If you don't want to think that it went that far, then it didn't.
Right.
So, kind of leaving it up to the reader to decide, I guess. So,
yeah, I assume that. I don't want to think that was violated in that way. Maybe he just, again,
maybe she just really doesn't want to dance again,
or he likes her feet and he really wants to kiss them again.
Yeah.
That's what I like to believe.
So him throwing Sleaze and like knocking him out, or like making him lose concentration, was able to release Barda enough.
Yeah.
And man, you really see the makeup on her face there.
Right. She looks like a real hua.
Yeah. But she's able to get her Mega Rod. She gets back in her armor, and now she's ready to
great panel,
her own justice.
Yeah. And that's again great panel of her,
Yeah, and Superman saying, "Wow."
Nah, he's like impressed,
Yeah. But he knows who she is when she says, because he's like, Barda, the wife of Scott Free, Mr. Miracle. So Superman has at least met Mr. Miracle at this
Right.
point.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know when they would have, but I guess they must have. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I haven't read. So
Yeah, there was like the Legend series happened somewhere.
that was before this.
I think so. I think so. And but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But there was probably enough happening that somewhere in there that, I mean, he obviously knows. So he's met
Right.
Mr. Miracle
And that
somewhere
was
along.
John Byrne too, right? He did Legend.
Yep.
Wasn't it him?
Yep. So uh so Barda's ready to, dish out
She's ready to kill him.
yeah, onto Sleaze here. And Superman's like, hold on just a second. Like, I know he's like bad, but like he stops her. And before he can really explain, she is like, what? You're a trick.
Right. I guess she's still disoriented and she doesn't realize, like, why would Superman stop me from doing this? Maybe she
Yeah.
doesn't realize Superman doesn't kill people. So she's like, well, if you're stopping me, that means you must be in cahoots with him. You don't want him harmed. So, you're not the real Superman. This is also part of the trick.
Yes. Yes.
This is cool. Like, this is all very well plot. Like, everything kind of falls into the next part without a lot of like, why, like you don't really question it. Well, how come they didn't do this? Like everything, it's very well plotted.
Yeah. And it happens like quickly too.
Yeah.
No part of this I felt like was particularly slow. Even the part with Clark Kent in the clinic and stuff. It was just like 2 pages.
Yeah.
And like, and it's what had to happen to get Superman down here into the sewer with them.
I have no issues with it.
These are cool panels. You see the back of Barda's helmet thing here, which that looks a little strange. I mean, not like strange, it shouldn't be this way, but it almost makes the whole thing make a little bit more sense.
Right. Like a big,
yeah, almost like horns kind of like dangling down. So
I guess it would be the
right,
the side of her helmet, the side pieces,
Yeah. So but she hits Superman with her Mega Rod. Great Kirby energy blasting all around it.
Got some Kirby crackle.
Yep. And then she's kind of like, well, it stuns Superman enough, and then that tentacle monster reappears and swipes the Mega Rod from her again. And fortunately, Mr. Sleaze here has a trap door that he's able to trap them both in to set us up for the next issue.
Yep. Yeah. So that's again the idea that if they're off for a minute and he's able to gain the upper hand, and that's what happens here.
Yep. Which, this John Byrne Superman was a little not fully depowered, but a little weaker than, like the Bronze and Silver Age Superman was. Though that probably didn't hurt him, the Mega Rod, but it stunned him enough. Right.
Well, if it was a machine gun, nothing would have happened. But this is a weapon of apocalypse.
Yes.
So it probably has a lot more power than the normal weapon, Earth weapon.
I mean, it fried his cape and stuff.
Yeah, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. So that wraps it up, and it says Mr. Miracle is the next issue. So kind of neat for being a team up book. Barda being the first issue, and then Mr. Miracle being the second. Although Barda's still kind of taking center stage of this cover, and this is the infamous issue, really, of the two.
Yeah, it's great cover. If you know the characters, then this is really out of place. For all of them. Like. Superman's kissing a woman,
Yeah. And all of this actually plays in really well to the inside of the book. I mean, like this part aside, but even this part with Mr. Miracle being carried off by the derelicts here,
right?
Even that like plays really well into like what's happened. Great story cover,
right? It's not just a cover for cover's sake, or cool drawing for cool drawing's sake.
So jump into it with Mr. Miracle doing his Mr. Miracle stuff.
So I love the idea that like this is a 9-panel grid, and if you know Mr. Miracle, you're like, all right, this is one of his tricks. This is one of his crazy things. And it's just the lock to open up the front
Yeah.
door of his house.
Yeah, because he's like,
And
honey, I'm home.
and look at the artwork there, though. Like, on the previous page there, so cool. Like
Yep.
Byrne did such a great job of it's nonsense, right? Like if you're looking at this, you're like, well, I don't know what's going on. There's nothing real here, but yet you can see something happening. Like you could. It comes to life. He really brings like the idea of this like contraption to life. I think it's so well
Well,
done.
this has like some lasers or something on it, and
Yeah,
this is like a little mirror thing that he whips out to redirect the lasers
right.
so that he can punch in this code and pull this other thing out that's really just a giant key, like you said. And they're timing it too to see how quick he can get in because
Mhm.
everything's like a game,
Right. So we
right?
think it's a bomb, but it's not. It's just him
Yeah,
coming home.
like he's getting out of a death trap. But yeah,
Right.
it's just the door lock.
Right.
But he's like, "Honey, I'm home," and so he's expecting Barda to be in there, and we have Darkseid chilling with a cognac or something.
Got a television. They got a nice television for 1987.
Yeah, cable box and
VCR,
everything.
yeah, everything. They got the whole deal. I found a picture. I was looking at my cousin. My little cousin sent me a picture of it was my communion. Me and my brother, confirmation. I don't know what it was. So it was 1988. And there's a picture of us here in our living room because this used to be where my family lived. I'm here by myself now, but our living room television is there, and it's about 11 inches big. I was
Yeah,
like, could you imagine that at some point in life, that's how big your like living room television was?
yeah. I mean, I
Like
remember
it's
like in
crazy.
the 90s getting like a 27-inch
Right. That
television
was a
in the
big
house.
deal. Yeah.
I was like, "Woo, 27-inch television. That's the one I want to
Yeah.
watch movies on."
I think
You know?
in like 89, we wound up moving upstairs, 2 floors up and we got a 30-inch television. That was the biggest television anybody that I knew ever had. And
Yeah,
we had that television up until probably like 2006. It lasted a really long time.
yeah. Those CRTs, like, I mean, they held up.
Yeah, it did. But it was just crazy. So when I saw this in 1987, I'm like, wow, these guys were living pretty large because we
Yeah.
had that tiny fucking television.
The Escape Artist Act pays well, I
I
guess.
guess so. Right, right. And I love the Oberon drawings. Like Oberon is like a midget, obviously, a little person, whatever.
Yeah,
Um, it's the rendering is kind of bizarre. Like if you know John Byrne's work, he's pretty terrible at drawing children.
yeah.
So when he draws children, they sort of look like Oberon does here. Poor kids.
Yeah. So, I do love this shot of,
Yeah, it's great.
Dark I mean, it's like his legs are crossed and everything. I
He's
mean,
fucking kicking it.
so, Darkseid shows up, and, of course, they think it's a trick, and even Oberon is,
Punching him in the balls or something,
yeah,
right?
and he's like, "You amuse me. You're feisty as ever. Like, ha
Right.
ha, I'll let you live." And then he whips out a VHS tape.
Which I think is great,
Yeah. I mean, the thought of, like, this, cosmic deity
warlord, right?
from, like, another planet. He's like, "Here's your VHS tape," you know?
Right. Not like a holodisc or something.
Yeah. He's like, "No, I have one of my agents pick this up for
Right,
me from the bootleggers on the side of the road in the suicide slum area of
right. Well, we're
Metropolis."
gonna learn why it's a
Yeah.
videotape, right?
So, they put it in, and you can just see the reactions of the faces,
Mhm.
both Mr. Miracle and Oberon, as they watch a video of Barda.
So basically, you're watching Barda fuck on film.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're gonna I think she's just dancing, Tommy, that's all it was.
I No, man, she's fucking, you know?
But they are definitely,
I don't think they
very
would be that
dismayed.
shocked,
Yeah.
if she was just dancing.
So Darkseid, he knows that it's sleaze involved, and he's even saying, like, "I didn't do this directly, but something from my past is basically the cause of all this, and I really want him dealt with. I'm just gonna, like, let you guys take care of it,
Right,
though."
right. He's helping for the most part. He's helping scot-free and Barda in this situation.
Yeah.
but
I
to
mean,
serve his own needs.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's not out of the kindness of his heart. It's because, it's like he can't be bothered enough with dealing with sleaze
Right.
personally, but at the same time, he's like, he needs to be taken care of
Yeah,
because
and
he's
I'm sure he also gets some sort of joy of presenting a video like this to Mr. Miracle,
yeah,
who
yeah,
is his stepson, you know?
yeah.
And,
Then we find out Sleaze is working with a movie person named Grossman. So we've got Sleaze and Grossman. It's
gross
like,
man, right?
yeah,
Typical sleazy guy, bald, and
yeah, with a
no
comb
offense,
over,
but, uh, yeah, like, definitely 80s looking creep,
and he's in this like little tiny office. Um, just papers everywhere and stuff.
Talking about how their video is selling like hotcakes, they need to print more, and it's the video of Barda. So Barda, obviously attractive woman, and people are like this video of her taking the pipe.
Yeah, it's doing well. It's this
Yeah,
video it is.
a big seller.
And Sleaze has somebody else that he can use in the video,
Dun, dun,
and
dun.
it's Superman. And the guy first freaks out, like, "What are you doing bringing Superman here?" He's like, "Oh, he's under my
He's
control.
gonna
Let me
bust up my
show you."
porno ring. What are you,
Yeah.
crazy?
And he's like, "No, no, he's under my control." He's like, "Oh, of course, it's not the real Superman." Yeah, it is. Look at him. He just crushes this desk with like, no effort. And it's, Superman's face is very like plain, like
Yeah.
the expression doesn't change. So he's definitely under control. And then the guy's even like, "Yeah, but we can't do solo acts, and anybody we put with him is going to end up like my desk."
Right, that's like that joke in, like, in Mallrats when he's
Yeah,
asking about, like, does will her fallopian tubes accept his, super
yeah,
semen? So, like, the idea that these guys know, like, if Superman fucks somebody, he's gonna destroy them.
yeah, exactly.
Poor Lois Lane.
Yeah. So, but he has he has the perfect match already, which is Barda, and here we
Yep.
see her in the red bikini that
Hot, looking
Kurt
good,
showed.
I gotta say,
Yeah,
she looks good.
but slim, it's like Kirby drew her like, kind of like wide, like an
Yeah,
athlete,
right. I
and
think she looks good, I think
yeah, she does look good,
he does a
but
good job of making her look, like you said, feminine, but also pretty powerful,
yeah, still
I
tall.
I always thought that actress would look good as Barda. She was in The Mandalorian, the one that
Yeah,
got kicked off. What was her name?
Carino.
Gina Carano.
Yeah, Gina Carano. Yeah, she
Like
would have
this,
been.
she looks like her. She's
Yeah,
built like her. She's big. She's got the dark hair. Unfortunately, she fucked up her career with Nazi shit. But whatever.
yeah,
Stupid ass.
yeah. Mr. Miracle, of course, is gonna go. He's on his disc. He's gonna go hunt her down, and we're gonna get the Mr. Miracle recap origin
Yep.
here as
Which
well.
is a great story, and I like that, Byrne took the time out to kind of give you the backstory of Mr. Miracle, because he also goes into the young Scott-Free storylines that appear
Mhm.
in those comics, which are really cool.
Yeah, he ties it all up, and like
Yeah,
with
right,
those stories, kind of like they gave you a little bit, and you kind of had to piece it together.
right,
This
right.
is just like, okay, here's your chronological, you
Mhm.
know, kind of order of it all.
Right, and that's what you mentioned earlier, like the way it's not that he dumbed it down, but he streamlined things. These
Yeah,
more modern writers who I think were more adept than Kirby at black and white, giving you a A to B
mhm,
idea. Whereas
yeah,
Kirby was kind of all over the place.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Kirby was just like he was coming up with it and putting it on paper,
Right.
So
He wasn't concerned with, like. I mean, I don't know if that's good or bad, though. I mean, like we said prior to the recording tonight when we were talking, I think it's in a way it's good because it makes you kind of reread these stories, and every time you read it, you get something new, and you get a new subtext and something under there that you might not have noticed the first time. So it's good in that respect, because I
mhm,
think a lot of times if it was simplified, it would be forgettable,
right.
And so I think that's a good aspect of his writing. There is a tendency to kind of, I'm not gonna say meander, because everything is done for a reason, whereas
Mhm,
if it's meandering, it's not, but there is a glut of ideas.
yeah,
Sometimes so many Kirby ideas that he loses focus,
yeah,
and he's like, fuck it, they'll figure it out. You know, like he's not. I don't think he treats his audience like dummies. You know, whereas
Right.
like a lot of times I think Stanley did a lot of exposition, a lot of like
Yeah.
explaining what you see in the photo. It's like, yeah, I
Right.
see it. You don't need to explain it. You know, and I think
Even my kids, even my kids pick up on that. They're like, "Why is he explaining what he's doing as he's doing it?" Like,
it's
they
like
love it. They
I
love
think
old comics, but like they'll even like point out the like
it's
silly.
funny. I mean, it's definitely of the time, and I think Kirby was like, they'll figure it out. You know, which is respect for the audience. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, we get the good recap here. Just taking a couple of pages to let us know who exactly Mr. Miracle is. That's just this era of comics. You had to do that kind of stuff.
Yep. They would do that every issue of Spider-Man, like in the 80s.
Yeah, and X-Men was like the worst. Those
Oh man.
Claremont issues of like we got to go through every character and
Right.
describe who they are and what they're about, how their powers work, and so
Takes
forth.
forever, right?
Mr. Miracle has made his way to Suicide Slum, and I like this where he's like, Mother Box is not alerting me to any imminent danger, and he immediately gets jumped, and they like beat him up, throw him in a bag, chain him up, throw him in a dumpster, weld the dumpster
I love
shut.
that they have the welding equipment
Yeah,
with them.
and they're like, hurry, hurry, we're doing all this stuff. I mean, they're making the death trap for him. This is what Mr. Miracle does, right? It's
Right,
like
right.
they're doing it all, throwing it into the water, and you're like, dang, we're gonna see how he's gonna get out of that. But the next page, he's just already out.
Yeah, which was great. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Which
I
was
did.
cool, you know?
I had to go back and be like, wait, did I miss a page?
Right. I
Like,
thought because
you're like
I read it digitally, and sometimes like when they
swipe
scan the
fast.
pages in, right, that's
Yeah.
fucked up, you know. So I thought I missed something, and like you, and I went back. I'm like, no, okay, let me just keep reading, you know.
And then it dawned on me, I was like, oh, he just escaped that fast. And it even
Right.
says, like, as I was saying, no imminent danger was near me
Right.
because that wasn't like anything that was going to slow him
Nothing
down.
for him, right? I love that because initially like you're confused, but then you realize like, oh no, he just got out. You know,
Yeah.
he's that good at his job.
So then we're going to cut to Superman and Barda.
Getting it on.
They are making a movie. They are at the movie set, like a bedroom. There's a camcorder there. Superman is not a very good actor.
Yeah, he's very stiff. He's very unpassionate. Grossman is upset because he feels like, you know, this guy's. I think he makes a. There's a line he says. I mean, you could read it better than I can about like.
Superman's got all the sex appeal on the side of beef.
Okay, there you go. So nobody thinks of Superman as like a sexy character, right? That's
Right.
why I said like the cover is so out of character because he's
Yeah.
passionately kissing this woman who's not Lois Lane. And so I love that line because it's kind of a joke about Superman himself, right?
Yeah.
About how people view him, like the big Boy Scout, you know,
Yep.
big blue Boy Scout. So that's really funny, I thought. No.
Yeah. And you know what strikes me about this too? Again, putting this in the context of 1987, this is well before celebrity sex tapes like became a thing.
Nah.
You know, it's like I think of like the first one was probably like the Tommy Lee, Pamela Anderson one
Right.
that like kind of made its rounds, right?
Or like Rob Lowe in the 80s. Remember there was like a sex tape of Rob Lowe with
Oh
some
yeah, I guess
girls.
so. And maybe that's what this was kind of based off
Right.
of.
Well,
But
this
it's
is
like,
I just think it's the porno industry. Like this is an underground porno
yeah.
you know,
But they think
operation.
they're gonna do well because this is with Superman especially. Barda probably not
Oh,
really known to the public,
right.
but Superman is it's like we got Superman
Right.
here doing this, and that's what they think is gonna like
True.
just blow this whole thing up. And it's just funny to think about like when this came out, that wouldn't have been like a thing, be like, oh, we need celebrities, like go hack a celebrity and get their sex tape and like put it out there and let's make $1 million. But like, you know, in the 90s, it kind of became more prevalent. And to the point where I think some celebrities were kind of releasing some
Doing
like,
it on purpose, right?
yeah, I'm like, oh, I didn't want that to get out, you know, but
Start
like,
my career, Kim Kardashian, you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny to think like 1987 that wasn't really a thing, but just shortly after this, within the next like 6-7 years, that stuff starts happening.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. Yeah, it's a good point.
So anyway, yeah, basically, Superman, his willpower isn't really letting him go through with it, is what they're kind of saying here. He's even like sweating in this one. You know? He's fighting it off so hard. He's like, his hair's
Vagina.
kind of messed up. He's sweating.
I'm scared of vagina. I think he says like his moral fiber is preventing him from going through with banging some guy's wife. You know.
Yeah, so he's like, and he needs to use his empath powers for a greater depth of depravity.
It's like you're 8 years old reading this. You're like, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
A 10-year-old kid, like,
it's like, so he can corrupt one as pure and noble as Superman.
Right. Cool.
Anyway,
Again,
so,
everything makes sense. Like it's everything is dominoes are falling right into each other, and character wise, like it all makes sense as well, you know.
and we got Mr. Miracle on looking here. I think there's a word for that as well.
Peeping and creeping. He's being cooked.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
So he's like, I gotta put the kibosh on this. So enough, and he bashes through the skyline, and then so corny. Cut.
Yeah, but he's doing it with a good sense of humor. Cut.
Right.
That's a wrap, people.
Right.
But he realizes something's going on. He knows Barda wouldn't be doing this.
Right. Something's up. Right.
And he probably knows Superman wouldn't be doing this either.
Right.
And he sees these, like, this toady looking guy. I'm sure he realizes is, doing something.
Right.
So
I think he says like that guy's not human, or that guy's not from Earth, or something like that.
So he gets it, and of course, Sleaze recognizes him immediately, shouts out his name. And then we kind of get...
Hold on, now, is that an ad for a gun? What is that? The ad? No. The page that you're on right now.
This right here?
Yeah, what is that?
No, it's a comic shop. So it's like a dragon.
From here, it looks like a gun, like this. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, I can see how you...
I have shitty eyesight. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's like a dragon.
Okay. Oh, okay, I see it. I know the 80s were crazy,
Yeah. I never think of guns. Like BB guns used to be in comics.
Yeah, BB guns would be in comics, and like other ninja weapons,
Oh yeah, those were all over the place. Even this part. Okay, so Mr. Miracle, he comes in and he explains how he got out of the dumpster too.
Cool.
That he has a little laser, and I think right here is like kind of a flashback panel where he shows he like cut his way out before they ever threw it into the ocean.
So fast.
Yeah, that's how quickly it happened. So he's gonna jump on Sleaze, and our tentacle creature comes back.
And I love that the name of this creature is called an ash crawler. They don't say it in here, but I was reading like the something about the comic.
I think they do call it that. Yeah.
Oh, they do.
Maybe
ash
not on
crawler. What a great name, ash crawler.
Yeah,
it's cool
because it comes back, and I mean it's hard to define really, like where its mouth is or whatever. It looks like Krang from the Turtles.
Yeah, right. It's just like an octopus.
No face.
Right. It reminded me of the creature in Are you familiar?
He says it right here, an ash crawler.
Oh, okay. So he knows
like an ash crawler. Yeah.
Right. It reminded me of the thing in The Force Awakens that they have trapped. Do you remember? Han and Chewie. It's like a big. It's just got tentacles and an eye and shit. Yep. Like it's not really determined what it looks like.
So he throws it off of him, and Barda is snapped out of it. There's been enough commotion now that both Superman and Barda are snapping out of their like hypnosis that they're under. And she grabs this thing and sticks her hand down in it and crushes its like brain or heart or whatever that's at the center of it. And it's the only way to kill the thing.
She just plunges her hand directly into it. You don't know what she's doing. But she ruins it.
It just says sketch. And then she holds up its dead, lifeless body.
She's proud of it too. Like that's a warrior stance right there.
Oh yeah. That's a trophy for her, right? And then like her other hand's like covered in the goo.
Ugh.
The one she like stuck down in there. And then they're like, what happened to Superman? And Superman's taken off to look for Sleaze, and there's so many lead pipes and stuff. He's having a hard time.
Which was a cool detail,
Yep.
And he's like, I could use my senses, I can't use my vision, but I could use my sense of smell to find him. Like, wouldn't the sense of smell be overtaken by like the smells of the
sewage.
sewer. You know, that's what I thought.
You think. But he ends up using his hearing though, because he hears a tink,
Right.
and he catches up to him, and he just like strikes a match, which makes all like the sewage off gassing or whatever explode.
Yeah,
and that's a great panel.
Great panel, yeah.
Out, you know, that great use of negative. It's a big panel and a great use of negative space.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And then you see Superman kind of just, he's all like kind
smoking.
He's smoking. His hair is all like frizzed up and everything. And he's just like, great Scott. So in this moment, he thinks that Sleaze has like committed suicide, like gone kamikaze on him, right? So he goes back. Barda's back in her armor, and they have the weird moment about acknowledging what happened here.
Right. Let's just both forget. We don't really fully remember either of us, and let's just leave it that way. Let's better off that way. And they're like, all right, see you later, Superman. All right, Scott.
But this panel, it's like their faces are so close to each other, and you see him in the background.
Yeah. That's the one where he's like, you guys better forget everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So they're like, okay, Superman, until we meet again, like we're gonna go to marriage counseling.
Like nothing happened, right? We're gonna go take a bath, you know.
Yeah.
I have to take Barda to the clinic just to get checked out, you know.
Oh man. So Superman returns to the clinic with the old people from the last issue, and he thinks that Sleaze's death was probably going to lead to these people dying, because oddly enough, Sleaze was giving off a radiation that was somehow keeping these people alive.
Yeah, and also it also played into the empathy powers.
Yes,
right.
And that's why he didn't want to like let Barda just have, you know, her way with Sleaze in the last issue.
Right.
But he didn't explain it to her. And I mean, he's like, I couldn't basically he says he couldn't explain it because of keeping his identity secret, which that part doesn't really add up, because he could have been like, Clark Kent told me or something, you know.
Right.
But whatever. I mean,
Clark's writing a report about this.
Yes.
You know, there could have been many, or he didn't need to say anything, you know. Who's going to question Superman? Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, that part, that's probably the weakest part of like this whole storyline, but it's like that needed to happen. Like Superman needed to not let her kill him in that instance, just so we could get this issue.
But would he have let her kill him anyway? Like I don't think he would just stand by when somebody gets murdered, you know?
No, I don't think so either. And I think even in that moment, he wanted to kind of like just stop her and explain,
right,
and like subdue Sleaze, but she was so like, you know, disoriented coming out of her first,
right, that she turned against him, and it just
hypnotic and everything. Yeah, that it just, you know, typical superhero team up. They got to have a fight in there too, right? So because they're still alive, that lets you know that like Sleaze is probably still alive too. And I don't know that I can't think of another time that he reappears, but I'm sure he does.
Yeah, that's a good question. We should have looked that up. Should we look that up? Let's look that up. Hold on 1 second. Personator and Sleaze. This is his first appearance. Occupation: amateur film director. Universe, Fourth World, John Byrne creators. Okay, so Action Comics 592/87, and appearance of death was Countdown number 46 in June of 2007.
Okay, so I've not read that.
So. He was around for a while.
Yeah,
I don't know how often he was used, but he was around for a while.
Yeah.
He appeared through some time later during the events of Countdown and was slain for good by the mysterious God Killer during the events of Death of the New Gods. Oh, wow. He was in that. I don't remember that. It was a long time that I read that. So there you go. 13 appearances of Sleaze, it says. Huh?
Okay. Well, this is two of the 13, and then we just found out.
I think it's a pretty good character. You know, like Darkseid has these underlings that kind of don't make sense in the idea, like this guy's this huge omnipotent villain, and he has like his underlings are like sort of like they're not on the same level as him, but each one has like their own special skill or whatever, So a guy like this sort of falls in line with like Desaad, like
That's
his
who I was thinking.
like his creepy minion.
And that's
But
kind of seems like what his role was with Darkseid, but maybe he took it to like some like perverse
right.
realm. Whereas Desaad is like straight up torture, and it sounds like he was a little bit more depraved in what he was doing, and maybe
Yeah, I mean we
maybe he
just
was too self-indulgent or something. I don't know. It'd be
yeah,
interesting to know if any of those other appearances it explained
explain that. Yeah.
why Darkseid was like, you're too much even for me.
Right, right. It's probably like I said, it wasn't even that he did anything too terrible. He just got bored of it and was like, all right, enough. Like there's nothing here of substance. So I'm just tired of this guy. So goodbye.
Yeah.
But but you're right. You did point out that he's crashing in the room and he's catching him doing something. Yeah.
Yeah, but even when Darkseid shows up in this issue, he obviously didn't feel it important enough to go
Right.
take care of himself, right?
Mhm.
So, um,
Just things that he found to be unsavory,
well, you got any final thoughts on this issue? Are you happy that I asked you to read these?
Yeah, I thought this was a lot of fun. I liked the story. Like I said, I think it was well written. Um, in the grand scheme of things, sort of like a silly story, right? But I think that's kind of how all of these were at the time. But I like going into the fourth world lore, like in a lot of ways Byrne added to it, with the
Mhm.
creation of sleeves and having him connected to Darkseid and everything. So that's it gives Darkseid in a way, it gives him a little bit of a backstory, shows the relationship between him and Scott here, this kind of taunting, It was good. I loved the art was great. I can't say anything bad about that.
Yeah.
It was cool. Good story. Superman was Superman. Nothing out of character. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Sometimes characters will do things out of character just for the story that they're supposed to be serving, and I don't think that was the case here with anybody.
Yeah, I think everybody was pretty much spot on. Superman was, of course, Byrne had been. This is like into the second year,
Yeah.
I think, of Byrne's Superman run, and if anything, Byrne was very consistent with how he wrote
Mm-hmm.
Superman and built upon, the new
Right.
lore that he was building, right? So I think, and it worked well with having him do a Clark Kent thing, which led to his Superman thing.
Yeah.
Barda, of course, written well. I think the questions we have were like, why was she even in Suicide Slum? Was she like,
Mm.
Scott thought she was going to be at home, obviously, so she must have
Right.
gone
Yeah, that's
shopping and
true.
took a wrong turn and wandered into this like bad part of town.
They
Like,
never they never did get into that at all,
so
which I guess it doesn't really, again, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of throwaway anyway.
yeah. All right. Well, Tommy, thanks for joining me, and I
Yeah,
think
thanks
I'm
for
gonna have
having
you
me,
on.
man.
Think I'll have you on soon for like an FF video too, right?
I'm down for that. I'm a big Fantastic Four fan. The movie coming out, it'd be fun to talk about that. And
All right.
we'll have you back on our show when you're ready. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll cover this on
I'm
our
down
show.
for talking about it once again, always.
And on our show, we'll get a lot more into the nitty-gritty filth, because we like to make a lot of dick jokes on our show, folks.
Thanks for coming, and as always, read your comics. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my breakdown of this issue, you can support the channel by hitting subscribe. It costs you nothing and helps other comic fans find the channel. You can also visit readyourcomics.com for cool merch, like this. Read Your Comics isn't just a brand, it's a mantra. And when you wear a Read Your Comics shirt, you are helping spread the word. For more classic comics conversation, be sure to follow me on Instagram at read.your.comics. And if you're still here, why not watch one of my older videos? Here or here.